you guys, and today's video is a very special one where I will be covering up the entirety of lore of my dearest character in Genshin, Scaramouche aka Kunikuzushi, aka the upcoming wanderer. Ever since I first met this character, I was completely under the charm. Not only in appearance, but the mystery this guy held was very intriguing. So when I learned about him more by the time, I was blown away and my admiration for him became stronger each passing day. I simply relate to him a lot, more than I've ever related to anyone in my entire life. But I digress. We're going to dive in this amazing character's lore, and to do that, we'll start off by the very beginning, from the very moment he was first created. After the events of the cataclysm in Kanaria and the death of the original Electro-Archon Ball, Makoto, wrecked by grief, her sister Beelzebul, or what we know as Raiden A, decided on the execution of a project with the help of her companion Yae Miko, using a lost art and technology, as Miko referred to create a puppet whose purpose was storing the gnosis. At the end, the puppet was indeed created, but it was merely a prototype to test the possibility of this project. It was not one to resemble the Archon herself, but one with his own characteristics. He was described as a youthful appearance, with a beautiful face fairer than others. But when the puppet first received the gnosis, however, he shed tears in his sleep, for the burden of it was too great for him to handle. Thus his creator coming to a conclusion. The doll was too fragile and weak, even though A couldn't bring herself to destroy her own creation. Ignoring all the warnings of Miko, she in fact left him all alone in the Shake Pavilion after putting him to slumber, believing that she doesn't want to assert control over him. The doll would eventually awaken himself from his slumber just to realize he was abandoned completely by his creator. He was a divine being but was tossed aside like worthless dross. So he began his journey wandering the mortal realm, and eventually came across several people in the land of Tatarasuna. Katsuragi was the first person that the wandering eccentric came across to. He was a young deputy who spotted him in Nazushi Beach. He then taught him the ways of smithing. As the time goes by, the two would grow much closer, to the extent of the eccentric would come to consider Katsuragi and the other men as his family. But destiny was not on their side, for what happened next was quite interesting and tragic. And that's because while in the 3.1 cutscene, Katsuragi was mentioned to call the eccentric an abomination, the Husk of Opulent Dreams artifact set lore stated otherwise. Katsuragi actually warned him not to mention his origins to anyone, knowing that he was a creation of the almighty Shogun. It's still a mystery to why the eccentric said such thing in cutscene. Perhaps he saw Katsuragi's act of protecting his identity as him fearing him or something in this nature. But moving on to what happened next, the bladesmiths were all gathered there for a reason after all, that is somehow related to an inspector who stood between this Tatarasuna family, Mikoshi Nagamasa. Forging the Daitatara Nagamasa was the purpose, and the reason behind it though was kind of interesting. To get a better understanding of the events that occurred after successfully forging that great sword, we need to unpack this Nagamasa guy's identity first. Mikoshi Nagamasa was Mikoshi Shiyo, A's only friend's adopted son. After Shiyo went mad from corruption and turned on A, thus A was forced to kill her, the Mikoshi name was dragged through the mud, and that resulted on Nagamasa's obsession with restoring and cleaning the family name's reputation. Now that we know Nagamasa's true identity, it has become clear why they were so eager to forge that great sword, hoping that it would satisfy the shogun. After the making of the Daitatara Nagamasa, even though it was the one thing that established their friendship, it was also the one thing that shattered it. In the making of the great sword, Nagamasa decided to use crystal marrow in the process, which eventually caused the illness of the villagers. It became so intense, but Nagamasa still refused to destroy the weapon. That's when Katsuragi decided to take things on his own hands. He discussed seeking help with the wandering eccentric, but things got out of hand the moment Nagamasa discovered the puppet's identity from the golden ornament he was holding into, then said, and I quote, "You are neither man nor machine. I can only deal with you in this fashion. Don't hold it against me." And as such, the puppet was imprisoned, as Nagamasa feared he would tell on him to the shogun, so he had to stop it from happening, therefore his family name's reputation wouldn't be tainted. Katsuragi, however, was determined to stop the illness, so he freed the eccentric without Nagamasa's knowledge and told him to go and get help, so he did as told. He went on his way to a shrine maiden and explained the situation. Though we never got a name, the person was described as lovely, and it only makes me think of Yae Miko. But that's not the point. For whoever that was, they lied about sending help, resulting in the death of the villagers. Though when the puppet returned to his what he once called family, he found out that his dear friend Katsuragi was murdered by the hands of none other than Nagamasa, and with the same weapon they all gathered at first to forge. Wrecked by this event, the eccentric had no choice but to kill Nagamasa with the same weapon. From that point on, the great sword, long forgotten as the Daitatara Nagamasa, and adopted a new name, the Katsuragi Nagamasa. Regardless of what happened, the puppet continued wandering, lost and alone again. He then met a single child that he described as someone just like himself, a hope for the future. The child was inflicted by Tataragami, and unfortunately he too didn't make it at the end. So the wanderer continued on his way all alone. He traveled seeing and watching the people of this land and the many different hearts they possessed. Good ones, bad ones, upright ones, gentle ones, strong and weak ones. Therefore the puppet too desired a heart of his own. That's when he would be found at the end by the masked men, the Fatui. He would be taken by boat to the icy lands of Snezhnaya and experimented on, more likely to be done by none other than the doctor himself, Il Dottore, the second Fatui harbinger. Unlocking his electro abilities that A once sealed when putting him into slumber, the Fatui promised him of unlocking his true potential, promised to give him what his creator had failed to give, the thing he desired the most, a heart. But it was not the one he desired, for it was merely a prop of lies and deception. And that's when the birth of the sixth Fatui harbinger happened, the birth of Scaramouche, the Balladeer. According to Victor, Scaramouche was not well liked among the Fatui due to his disagreeable personality and refusal to keep his mouth shut, and even his fellow harbingers appeared to dislike him. Scaramouche is naturally a cunning individual, and possessing the wit and power to back him up, he is an unpredictable person. He was a harbinger known for his cruel nature. He would use unnecessary violence motivated by sheer entertainment, for he once slapped a Fatui agent only to smile after at the look of terror on the agent's face. The Balladeer would never hesitate to lie and manipulate his way to get what he wants, and definitely not afraid to berate everyone he deems beneath him. He simply believed that nor mortal, nor God, nor fate, nor anything is qualified to judge him. Scaramouche is dancing in a paradox of human emotions. In a hand, he despises them and sees them as a burden. He described them as human filth that must be erased. On the other hand, he's afraid of losing them. Before diving into the life of the Balladeer and the current Inazuma and Sumeru Archon quests, let's take a look at the moment he named himself Kunikuzushi, which is a name in the Inazuma traditional theater. Such characters are known for being schemers and destroyers of nations. At the end of his wanderings, he chose this name as an act of his own will, while the name he once went by, he himself has long forgotten it. At that time, Kunikuzushi was involved in the Raiden Gokaden incident. For context, in Inazuma there were once 5 schools of smithing arts known as the Raiden Gokaden, but only between them all remained the Amenoma clan, while the Ishin arts of the Kaidahara clan can barely be said to have descendants. In the eyes of everyone, their fall was just caused by the ravages of time, but little did they know that there was a mastermind behind the fall. The other smithing arts were erased by murder and extinction, while the Kaidahara one was accused of tampering the blueprints of an important weapon, and thus had an encounter with the true perpetrator, Kunikuzushi. While he had originally planned the erasure of all 5 schools, he stopped his own plans for 2 reasons. One is that he got bored of the whole thing as mentioned in the Husk of Opulent Dreams artifact set. The other is what seems to be more likely the real reason behind his abandonment of his plans. As we've all seen in the Irodori festival, the reason was a person named Niwa. He was a man that was adopted by the Kaidahara family, and that Scaramouche immediately recognized as relative to his former friend Katsuragi, for he was his father, I presume. Nevertheless, that person was none other than Kaidahara Yoshinori, Kazuha's great-grandfather. Kunikuzushi then spared the Kaidahara clan's life and simply told the man to tell her, I assume her referred to the shogun, my name is Kunikuzushi, and then left. Now we can finally get to the point of his first encounter with the traveler. In the Unreconciled Stars event, the Balladeer was sent to Liyue to investigate the meteor's incident, and along the way he would discover the truth of this world and say,
The stars, the sky, it's all a gigantic hoax, a lie.
After that comes his second encounter with the Traveler, and his actual direct confrontation with them happened in the Vision Hunt Decree, where the Fatui played an important role in the making of. The Balladeer was assigned to facilitate the production of the delusions and distributing them, but his plans were stopped once again by none other than himself. Yae Miko intervened, with the Electro-Gnosis in hand, proposing an exchange. The traveler's safety and life for the Gnosis. It was then that he chose to take the Gnosis and continue on his way with a new ambition. He then left the Fatui and fled with the Gnosis. In the Husk of Opulent Dreams artifact set, it was mentioned that Scaramouche had a dream. It was a dream about himself dancing in the moonlight, and that his past or future self was talking to him. Which one was it? We really don't know. Regardless of which one was it was warning him about the disaster and suffering that comes with following his ambition of the Gnosis and becoming a god, and that way would only lead him to more despair and deception. The Balladeer continued on his journey where he met his old colleague once more. Then we found out that he was a puppet for a grand scheme of the academia and a doctor, one that was using his ambition to become a god. They planned to make him one, but alas, it was all destroyed by Nahida and the traveler and the people of Sumeru. While it was a great thing for the well-being of the nation, it was a complete disaster for Scaramouche, for the world yet again chose to be cruel to him. He lost the only thing that made him feel like he was worth something, the only reason he believed he was made for, the Gnosis. The Balladeer's tale is still ongoing at the time I'm making this video. For all we know so far is that he's in a state of coma. Eventually, we'll see where fate leads him to in the upcoming patch of 3.3, while we'll finally have him as a playable character. Before I end this video, there are things I thought worthy of mentioning. This is going to be about analyzing a little bit the parallels of Scaramouche and Kazuha's characters. If we dive deep into their characters, stories, pasts, and present, we would definitely notice the similarities between them. Both characters were wronged by the Raiden Shogun. Both characters felt that they were useless in their lives. They both had a dear friend dying on them, and both wandered the lands lost and lonely. But here's where the interesting thing lies on. While Kazuha during his life journey was fortunate enough to meet with the right people, Skara on the other hand wasn't. Kazuha had a loving, caring, supportive family, while Scaramouche was abandoned by the only one he once called a mother. Kazuha met a good friend that died by the hands of the Shogun, while Scaramouche's friend died by the hands of someone he considered one's family. Kazuha was saved by the Crux fleet, where he met Captain Beidou and her crew, who were extremely kind, welcoming, and understanding people, while Scaramouche was met unfortunately with the Fatui. This huge difference in the environment they grew with is what made Kazuha the honest, forgiving, good person who learned to move on from the past and to not cling to past grudges, while it made Scaramouche, well, the person we see and know him as, seeking revenge, angry, frustrated, seeking validation, and the need to feel like worth something while clinging to the past. I just love these parallels they have. It's like they're different sides of the same coin, and their actual lore connection makes it even more amazing, and would be such a shame and waste of potential not seeing them interact with each other. This may be a personal wish and desire of mine, but I would love it for them to actually meet. I feel like in the current event, the only person who would actually care about Scaramouche is Kazuha, and his story quest makes my statement stronger when Kazuha actually cared about the Kakotsurube Ishin blade at the end and said that perhaps him seeing grand ambition grow piques his interest, and without mentioning the way Kazuha understood the blade's character while saying, this blade made a lot of atrocities because it lost its original master, therefore there was no one there to correct him. This is basically describing Scaramouche's character. There's one more thing that Kazuha mentioned that stuck with me. It would take different amount of times for different people, but it will inevitably come a day when each person can let go of their burdens, and when they finally let go, they are free to follow the wind as they please. Y'all can tell me this doesn't apply to Scaramouche, and it's just so clear as the light of the day how much they are so much alike and in parallels with each other. But I digress. I think this is enough for this video, for it already became too long than I originally planned. I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I did. It was really fun making a Scaramouche based video with a little bit of sprinkles of Kazuha at the end. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!